Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's me, Ozzy. I'm super excited this week. On this week's episode, Zach is actually out this week due to Christmas festivities, and I am going to be here today with you all to talk about everything top of funnel for your agency with our very own Nate Owens, who leads the entire front of house when it comes to our funnels with cold prospects. And we're going to dive deep into this because I'm going to tell you right now, we talk to hundreds of agencies every month, and majority, and Nate will back me up here, majority of them don't have any sort of outreach or any sort of acquisition funnel. So we're going to dive deep in the weeds today. And so just a quick intro on the show here. If you're new here, Zach and I together, we're the founders of Advirtis. We have built multiple businesses, including Advirtis, where we've helped over 300 marketing agencies scale smarter, grow faster, and escape the chaos that most agency owners get stuck in. Again, on this podcast, you can really expect when you show up every week that we're going to break down real life conversations that agency owners are actually having, because we're talking to hundreds every single month. We are going to talk about sales, operations, hiring, scaling, leadership, the wins, the failures, all of it. And today, again, we're going to talk about building top of funnel for your agency. Now, Nate, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Nate's a special treat. Nate is also a very close friend of mine. And I didn't have to pull too hard to get him to show up here today. He joined us pretty easily. So I was really excited to see that. Thanks for joining us, Nate. For a proper introduction, I do want to say Nate is he's like Nate the Great. I'm just going to say. I have one fun story that I always tell people when I introduce Nate, dinner parties or anything. Say, this guy right here, he used to be my neighbor, and I love cycling a lot, probably too much. And I came in one day with another friend, and I got on my road bike, and we were training for a big ride. It's called Rain Ride. It's called Ride Across Indiana. Nate came out with his dogs, and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're starting a training regimen for this ride." He didn't know anything about it. And he didn't have a road bike. And he said, "Can I go too?" And we're like, "Yeah." So he gets on my wife's road bike. This guy's like 6'2". He's a monster. Marine Corps veteran. You'll know that here in a second. And guy gets on the first ride, rides like 20 miles, gets back. He's like, "That wasn't so bad. That was the first time I rode my bike in like 14 years.
I hadn't been on any bike for since I was a child.
And I'll be the first to tell you this, okay? This guy, not only did he only have 4 months, and really 3 because of the rain, to train for this big ride that we did in July of that year. This was in 24, I believe, right, Nate?
Yeah.
Nate showed up, didn't sleep the night before. That's crazy. That still blows my mind. And rode every single 160 miles that single day. One day, one way is what they say. He did the entire thing, and he only trained for like 3 months on a road bike.
It did take me 13 and a half hours.
Well, still, the resilience is uncapped. It's uncapped, right? So just so you guys know, Nate the Great, right? And he's a tough guy, but he's a big teddy bear at heart, and we love him here in Advirtis. He's been a part of our team here for over a year now, and he does a tremendous job managing all of our top of funnel. And, Nate, essentially, he is kind of the person that he's our top of house. So, very front of the house, he's checking every single person coming through our pipelines before they get to our partner success team. So, Nate, welcome. And tell us a little bit about what your role is and what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah. So like Ozzy said, it's really your outreach is your front lines. That's where people get their first introduction to you. It's their first impression. And I don't remember the exact person that quoted it, but there was one person that we like to listen to that often says a first impression is a lasting impression. And so a lot of the times that's something that's like at the forefront of my mind when I'm considering our outreach, when I'm designing the copy for some of our automation, or just when I'm responding to individuals in general. I take into consideration like, hey, this is the first time they are speaking with somebody, and it's going to be this next message that I send out is going to be the impression that we leave on them first and foremost. I understand that my role is the introduction. It is the hi, how are you? Are you, getting the meet and greet? But that conversation continues past me, and the impression I make first and foremost is the impression they're going to carry when they go to meet with Olivia or Kellyanne or you or Zach. That is the
Mhm.
first thing that happens. So for me, my day is divided up basically the same way that your outreach or your top of funnel is going to be divided up. It is priority between inbound versus outbound. So the let's go into the difference. What does that mean? An inbound lead means that we're sitting here and someone comes up to us and is like, "Hey, I'm looking for this service. Do you provide this? I'm interested."
By the way, great problem to have for your marketing agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love
Your
having those
marketing's working.
conversations. I love having that being said, very few of them are actually that forward. Most of them
Right.
are very much feeling you out. And that's the important part about having someone there whose main focus is like that first impression is what I do. So whether they're coming to me
Yeah.
going, "Hey, I don't know if I need this service. I think, how are you? Are you a good person? Do you do good work?" You can relax. It's fine. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what it is you need. We don't have to get into the nitty gritty. This doesn't need to be a negotiation or a debate or a tug of war match. We can work at this together.
Well, I would share, a lot of agencies they receive mostly for their pipeline inbound leads.
Mhm.
Then that can be in the form of a referral, which is very common word of mouth business and in this line of work for marketing agencies is very common. That's where most of them get their business. So we got your referral, then you have your marketing that obviously we're marketers, so marketing's really
Yep, that's
important.
what we do.
So then they have website leads come in,
Mhm.
hopefully, for your agency, which there's a big market share out there. There's over, I think, 104,000 agencies here in the US,
Mhm.
and they're all kind of chasing that same market share. So to Nate's point, there are nuances when it comes to inbound that are super important, which is why Nate holds that position. For example, speed.
Yeah. So one of the big factors in or big differences between handling an inbound lead where someone comes up to you and they're asking you about what you do versus you marketing or having some sort of outreach where you are basically sharing with others what it is you do and hoping that one of them is interested in what you're saying. The interest is already there. If someone's coming to you and they're asking you about what you do, they're interested. They've already spent a little bit of time. And if someone spent the time to look at us and then took the time to reach out to us, that out of just respect for that alone, you now have more of my time than a contact that I haven't made yet. I will stop responding to somebody. And the moment a lead comes in through the website, I'm like, "Hey, yeah, how are you doing?" Like this note that I'm writing, not important.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, like speed matters so much when it comes to inbound. And this is where marketers typically they make the mistake. They know these things because of their clients and how they work with their clients. Like the conversion is super important to move on an inbound lead quickly. But because most marketing agencies don't have that level of like a sales team, if you would,
Mhm.
they don't often treat their own leads that way. And I think that's super important. So anytime if you're listening as an agency owner, you have an inbound lead come in, whether a referral, whether an inbound lead from the website. These are super important. And one of the reasons why Nate covers this position is our response time is less than 10 minutes, which we're still working to get even like shorter, actually. We're trying to make it as quick as we can. And it's because of that speed. And to Nate's point, if you don't have a process that's built to handle that, then you're gonna trip over yourself every single time. And Nate actually he's done a really wonderful job of facilitating the difference between when that inbound lead comes in, how to qualify them, meaning he responds to them, then he looks into them, Nate, right? You run your dossiers on
Yep,
them,
absolutely.
and
Utilizing
then
a variety of tools. So
mhm,
I like I like thinking of like how we work and processes as in like real life events. So for me, an inbound lead is I'm sitting on a park bench, right? And I'm at the park for whatever. And then someone comes up to me and is like, "Hey, you look like you know what you're doing on this subject." Could be I'm reading a book about something that they're interested in and they want to know my opinion, or I could be dressed and something about me tells them, "Hey, you look like you're an expert on this subject." If I'm not responding to them, it's the same as if someone did that at a park and I completely ignored them. If I just stayed
that's
silent,
great.
yeah,
Love that.
if I just stayed silent and kept doing what I was doing or just kept staring off into space and completely disregarded them, or if I put my book down, drop what I'm doing, and engage with you, cool. Now we're in a conversation. Let's talk what we're doing. I've not, you're worth my time. And if
I love
you're
that. I love
interested in
that.
what we're doing, I've seen this, like, it's almost like, have you seen those movies where someone's like some important individual scrolling through their phone, and then the protagonist comes up and is like, "Hey, can you give me a minute of your time?" And they just hold their finger up like, "Wait, you're not worth what I'm doing."
It's terrible.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
entire time you're like, "What a jerk," right? Yeah, we
That's
don't.
it. I'm gonna
That's
go somewhere else. I'm gonna go to someone else to hopefully help me now.
Yeah,
That's what they typically
absolutely.
do.
That other person that is also on their phone but looks a little more warm and engaging. I'm gonna take my interest there. Next thing you
Exactly.
know, you've now created your biggest competitor because you just
Well,
didn't take the time to talk to them.
that's true. And the thing is, like, to your point, it's like, if you need to move, you need to move fast. I like the park bench analogy, because if the other part of that is the person comes up, walks up, says, "Hey, you look like a pro in this." You look at them and you don't say anything. That's my favorite, because I think that's common too, where a salesperson or someone that's managing top of funnel will look at the lead and say, "I'll get back to that later." You don't have time for that. It's
Yeah.
inbound. You got to get on it.
And then we get to the qualifying portion of that analogy. Let's say Ozzy's on the park bench and I walk up and I'm like, "You look like you're really experienced in cycling." And I can tell this because his website, aka his outfit, has him in a jersey with pants, a bike's leaning up against the park bench, and he's taking a break. So I have every reason to think that he maybe has some advice that I can say. Now, if I walk up in blue jeans, work boots, and like a top hat, ridiculous, when I go, "Hey, Ozzy's going to look at me and he's going to qualify me back," which is the other part of this. So not every lead that comes in for us is qualified to work with us. Either they're not a marketing agency or they're attempting to sell us on something. That's the first thing I have to assess in my role
Hmm.
is this lead worth taking to the team? So Ozzy would look at me and be like, "This guy's not dressed up at all for cycling. I'm not going to introduce him to my cycling team because it doesn't look like he's, one, either taking this seriously, or two, is someone we can actually help," which is the more important part of what I do. I never look at someone and I'm like, "Oh, this person isn't worth my time." When I'm evaluating, it is largely like, does this person fulfill a role that we can support? Is this an agency that we can actually help? And most of the time, if they are an agency, we can. Other times, it is just someone attempting to get us to sign up for services. And that's when I'm like, "Hey, we're not going to spend time on this. I'm not going to have the team look into this. I'm not going to have them get on a meeting." That's my role. It's my priority, is to protect the rest of the team's time. Because it's one thing for me to, sit there, qualify. I'm just spending the time doing it. But the moment I take it to the team, now there's 5 of us spending time that we
That's
could be
right.
spending somewhere else
That's right.
working
Well,
on
and
something.
I want to press on this, because this is the reason why we're having this discussion. Most agencies, they do not have a process that is clear when it comes to inbound, and they also don't have an outbound at all. Most of them do not have an outbound funnel going at all times. And I'm going to tell you guys this from firsthand, from my perspective. For Advirtis, specifically our agency, had we not had an outbound funnel consistently throughout the growth of this business, we would never have made it, because sales is what's driven this company for its growth. And what I mean by that is, there are moments where you have, in our line of work, our partners are bringing us business through their clients. And so we don't oftentimes have a ton of control of the retention of that, which is kind of the nuance of white label.
Yeah.
And so had we not had a top of funnel push back on to say, "Hey, we lost revenue here, but we got revenue coming in over here," we would just keep losing revenue. And every now and then, just like what normal agencies experience, get a referral here, bet on this agency to sell first over here. Nate is talking to 600 plus different prospects from top of funnel cold every single month. This guy is talking to brand new people, vetting them out, and having an active outbound, inbound funnel that keeps our pipeline filled. Our sales team quotes well over $800,000 a month in opportunities, and it starts with Nate. Yeah. So if you're an agency, you need to have a top of funnel. You need to have someone managing it, and you need to have an outbound funnel. And we'll get into outbound here. Actually, let's do it. Let's get into outbound now, Nate. I
Yeah.
think super important.
So one of the big reasons, so we've covered inbound, which is great. Someone comes up to you on the park bench. The other one is we've popped up a stage in the middle of the park and we are now sharing with everybody in the park. Agency
Yep.
owners, business owners, children playing in the playground. They're all getting to hear it.
We're
Obviously we
casting a
have,
wide net.
we have a few individuals that we're hoping are paying attention because we know, hey, that individual's definitely kind of someone I want to talk to versus the 2-year-old that's building a sandcastle. So that's the first part of this. So building a list, coming up with who do you want to work with? That is the first thing you, one, as a business owner, need to know. And I've recently talked to someone that shared some statistics with me. It was 40% of all business owners know who their target audience is.
Wow, just 40%.
Just 40%.
That's
Yeah. That so a lot of individuals think that they want to work with everybody. And
Mhm.
that's a nice idea. But at the end of the day, you have specialties. Everyone kind of specializes in something, and that's where your target audience is going to be. That's where the
I would
people
agree.
that you're going to be able to support the best and have the best relationships with are going to fall within that niche. And that's one of the first questions I ask in cold outreach is, do you have a niche? Do you have one? I want to know if you know who your target audience is. And two, I want to know if you've spent the time to figure that out because
Yep.
that should be a big priority for you because now you know who you want to outreach to. As your marketing
That's right.
agency, we need to know who we're building these things for.
Well, and to your point, if you don't know who your audience is, even as
Mhm.
an agency, like most marketing agencies that we talk to, they don't have a niche because they're like, I'll take all the work I can get. Like
Yeah,
I want every bit of work I can.
that's great. You're
And
never going to want to turn away anything.
well, and that's how we know like they don't
Yeah.
have anything like built for cold outreach, like
Mm,
nothing to like get their name out there from a top of funnel perspective because they don't know who they're targeting. And if you don't know who you're targeting, you don't know what their common pain points are. You don't know how
exactly.
to approach them. And to Nate's point, it's like part of the reason why it's important to have any sort of acquisition, the way that I look at business is every single outlet that you have for a revenue stream, meaning inbound lead, where you're getting inbound leads, where you're getting outbound, like you're doing your outbound, the way you get referrals, like there should be a process for each one. Those are fishing lines, each one of those. And however, that's a revenue stream for you to get new business in to keep your pipeline filled up. And the
Referrals are
more fishing
great.
lines,
Referrals are great, but
referrals.
it's like having someone else working your fishing line
Right.
instead
Exactly.
of you having
And they
control over
happen.
when they tug, when you reel, when you give it slack, when you don't. When you depend on referrals, and I'm not saying referrals are bad, referrals are great,
They're
but
great. Yeah.
someone else has made that first impression that I spoke about earlier. They're going into
That's
this
right.
conversation with you already having a preconception of who you are, what you do, and how you manage things. And I don't like going into that feeling like I'm on the back foot because, yes, my friend referred you to me and he and I are great friends. That's no promise that I'm going to be able to help you just because he thought it would work out. And because we've had no
Right.
dialogue or no communication. Now, there's plenty of situations where my friend knows what I do and he wouldn't refer me somebody that couldn't help, but you don't have any control over that.
So to get in more into the nitty gritty here, Nate, I
Mhm.
think it would be really helpful to show the audience more, or not, I guess to talk about more in line with what a cold acquisition funnel looks like for a marketing agency trying to build something like that. And so we have taken years of our team to build these funnels, and we've used different softwares and things like that. But what we like to do now is more of an omni-channel like presence, right? Let's dive deep into what that looks like for our agency. So the agency owners listening in today, I think you guys can relate and maybe even start building some of your own. And obviously, you know, I'm gonna do a plug here, but Advirtis is obviously happy to help your agency build these things as well. We want you to be successful as our partners, and that's what we do in our partnerships is we try to build these things out for them. So Nate, tell us a little bit more of the nuance of what you manage in when it comes to cold outreach. What are you currently doing to scale that at a point because we know probability is the biggest factor when it comes to cold outreach.
Yeah. One of the big reasons why you probably want to have a cold outreach in the first place is a big part of what I do benefits in replacing what we don't know we've lost. So a lot of agencies, they're a little comfortable with like, oh, well, I'm used to this, but you don't know when something's going to drop off, and your cold outreach and that, you know, that agency that's always been there, or that person that's always will suddenly be like, well, I don't need to spend as much in this. And you're going to have to balance that somehow. And that's by bringing on new work. You should constantly have this cold outreach going. And tools, find a tool. That is your first and foremost. A lot of individuals, agencies I talk to, they're like, oh, I don't like the automation. Yeah, automation is a thing, AI is a thing, and we've all probably experienced an inbox full of all of those. Many of us have
Yeah.
probably also experienced the tool I use today that saved my agency came from one of these. If it
Yeah.
hadn't pestered me for that 200th time at a time that I suddenly needed that problem solved, it came in at 2 a.m. No one was working at 2 a.m. No one was sitting there and sending messages at 2 a.m. That was
But
a
I know what
tool.
was. That was
Yeah,
a tool.
that was a
It's
tool.
funny you mentioned this. I've heard it for the last 5 years in this industry. Every single time they always have the same thing to say. When I ask an agency owner, I'm like, "What are you doing for your cold outreach?" I don't believe in that because I don't believe in pestering people, or I think it's just wrong to fill people's inboxes up with stuff and yada yada. I'm like, man, it's just data.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't have to be personal, guys. And then listen, I will share this. We're going to send 10,000 plus messages via any social media platform out there.
Mhm.
A probability is usually 20 to 40% are going to respond, and then 20% of those are going to be interested in be qualified for us to work with.
Yeah.
It is just numbers. And to Nate's point, the agency owners that are out there and they're saying, I don't do that, you're just missing out, because the ones that do and do it well is how they're, that's how we're quoting, up to $1 million a month in opportunities. And that's the difference. And that's one of our common complaints with our partners is they don't have enough
Absolutely.
business coming through.
That is one of the I would have to say that's one of the biggest contradictions I have when I'm speaking to someone is they're like, I want leads. Easily the number one thing that any agency owner or business owner asks me for is I want leads. I need money incoming. Okay, what are you doing to get it? Are you manually setting down and sending out emails? No, I'm too busy in my day to day. Okay, do you have anything doing that for you? No, because I don't want to pester anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, are you receiving multiple emails a day? Yes, I am. How did you find us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and to your point, it's like, if you want leads as an agency owner, it obviously takes work to get there,
Mhm.
but probability, you're a marketer. We're talking to you, marketer.
Yeah.
That there's a probability, meaning that if you send 100, one's going to respond. You can't do that manually, and you don't have the time. That's why you have to have an automation in place. And sure, this is the nuance part. That first touch is going to be automated, which means you need to have a
Mhm.
great software that you've built a very authentic first touch just to get someone to respond. It's not going to do all the work for you, right, Nate?
Oh, no, absolutely. So that's my next point is you have to build out copy. So yes, a lot of individuals like look at AI and automation as something that's evil. It's just a tool. How you use it, how you decide to utilize it is where you get into the evil versus not evil
Yeah.
aspect of it. You can
Just and,
absolutely
and
use
again,
it to just, you could also utilize it to share valuable information about what you're providing and who you're trying to help. And that's it. You're just doing and having the conversation that you would like to have with them. You're just automating the
well,
first reach.
when we do ours, and I'm just going to dive into like exactly how we do ours,
Mhm.
that first touch, it is not us pitching them Advirtis. It
No.
is us saying, hey, I noticed you own an agency. We're qualifying them. I would love the opportunity to talk with you about trends that you're seeing for your agency. We work with XYZ amount of agencies every month, and we see these trends. I'm curious to see your thoughts on these things.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
So
We're
there's
not trying to pitch them. We're trying to engage in conversation with them.
Yeah. So that's I feel like that's one of the things that we do a little bit differently than many because we've run across the tools and we've spoke to the individuals that are like, we will automate the entire conversation all the way up to the discovery call. I don't think that that's the best way to handle it because one, you're not privy to the conversation that was had. You don't know the promises that were made, and you don't know the position, the person you're talking to. You're going into this conversation blind. So when you're building out your automation or your outreach, it needs to check a couple of boxes. One, it needs to be a genuine touch. You need to genuinely want to connect with these individuals. Two, reference something that is happening for us right now. It is some of the big impacts LLMs are having with SEO and ranking. That's something we've actively tried to stay ahead of. And a lot of our outreach right now isn't necessarily us trying to pitch you, but also just trying to connect and be like, what are you doing about it? Because maybe you have a perspective or an idea about how to handle this that we haven't approached yet. At the end of the day, we're in marketing and we're in networking. If we don't network and actually connect with individuals, then what are we? It's just my bot talking to your bot.
This is the exact point that I wanted to get to in this episode. And listen closely, guys. What Nate is saying is the automation will do the first part of this, but the whole reason why Nate he has this role is because once someone connects and they actually do respond, that's when the authenticity comes in from that first touch is done. That's the hardest part of any cold. Now it's Nate's responsibility to maintain that momentum through actual conversation. And
With a
Nate's
real person.
managing with a real person. Nate is going and doing his dossier on this person, on their agency to qualify them before he even engages in conversation. But once they respond from that first touch, it is now Nate's responsibility, which is the part that a lot of agencies mess up when it gets to cold. They say, let's just throw them back into another automation. Let's go put them back into. No, stop. It doesn't work anymore. It worked like 4 years ago. Worked okay. It wasn't even the great. But now, Nate, your role, once they've responded, is authentically talking with them, going to HubSpot. We use HubSpot internally, making tasks to make sure you're following up with them. This is traditional sales stuff, guys. And legitimately going through the process of like a normal salesperson. I'm going to stay in touch with this person. I'm going to try to find I'm going to touch them on Instagram. I'm going to touch them on Facebook. I'm going to touch them via email. I'm going to touch them in a text message. Like Nate basically takes it and runs.
Yeah.
And
So a normal day for me, let's say we have an inbound lead. They've responded to the latest LLM thing that we're asking about. And like I said, it's not us trying to pitch. A lot of the first touch message is me setting up for a conversation where I want to learn more about. And who better to learn than the people on the front lines working in it? So when I'm designing the copy, I'm like, hey, how are people handling the newest target building an app for ChatGPT so that people can purchase easier through it? That was something that I'm like, wow, how are people responding to that? So that was something. And after that, someone responds, they're like, hey, yeah, we saw this and this is something we've done. Cool. I'm engaged. Like, who are you? Like, I go to your LinkedIn profile, I go to a Facebook profile, or I go to your business website. And I'm trying to gather. I'm like, okay, so when this person says that these are the changes they're making in their agency, do I see enough here to think that this is actually a really good route to go? Or are they just a freelancer that's, doesn't have any presence? Or that's my qualifying portion, because I don't want to waste their time as much as I don't want to spend time having a conversation that's going to result in us not being able to help them and them ultimately not being able to help us. So that's the importance of why I manually, visually by myself, I don't throw it through ChatGPT to be like, hey, is this person qualified? I qualify them. And I'm the one that determines, hey, yeah, this person's owned a marketing agency and they have been working in it for 14 years. They were there before automation was a thing, AI. They were back before websites were even, the internet didn't exist. This person's been working in it for 28, 30 years. He knows his stuff and he's seen a lot of change. So when he says, hey, I would get behind this now, let's have a conversation. Like, cool, how are you going about doing it? And it's different from each person. And that's kind of the beauty of it. The automation is just to start the conversation. After that, we're having a conversation. You, me, the automation is really just there waving its hand going,
icebreaker.
who wants to talk to me?
Yeah,
Who
it's an
actually wants to
icebreaker.
have a conversation?
Yeah, it's the icebreaker of the conversation. It allows you to come into a meeting, come into the interaction with something to talk about that allows you both to dive deep in, and then you start getting into the personal stuff and everything else. But it's an icebreaker, and I think to kind of summarize here, if you're an agency owner and you're wanting to build something like this, you need to identify your audience, you need to create an icebreaker, and you need to find out who it is you're talking to, create the icebreaker, send it out at scale,
The
and then
icebreaker
when the
should be
ones who
built
respond,
around an interest that you share with
yep,
your target
audience,
audience. So that's why
yep.
the target audience is so important, because you don't want to, if your icebreaker is a joke that someone in your field would never get, that's not a good one. You need, hey, if you're an SEO specialist, okay, your icebreaker should be about SEO, not PPC or,
I have
something
one.
different.
If your audience is roofing companies,
Hmm.
you may find there's a latest trend with Google with the cost per click has been driven down for local service based and doing like LSAs. Then you could reach out to the director of marketing for all roofing companies and say, hey, I just recently noticed that the CPC was lowered on Google for LSAs. Have you checked that out? What has been has it been successful for you? Question mark. Boom, icebreaker.
Simple as
And
that.
one, you're coming in with authority because you're saying, I'm aware of this thing that's helpful for this industry. But
Mhm.
two, it strikes a conversation that actually talk about the service, et cetera. Now, not every single person is going to respond, but that's why you
No.
send it in at scale.
Yeah,
And
that's why you want
to,
to send so many, because like Ozzy said earlier, 20% are going to actually respond to you. 5% of that are not going to be happy because you used an automation. The other 45% are too busy to really engage. And then you'll get down to the individuals that are like, actually, this sounds interesting. Tell me more.
and
Tell them more.
it's worth mentioning. Yeah, it's worth mentioning though. You got to make sure you're on the right platform,
Mhm.
because if you're targeting a roofing company, you may not want to be on like a LinkedIn. You may want to be on an Instagram or
Or
Facebook
Facebook. Yeah.
or where your audience lives. Of course, that's why it matters to know who your audience is. But then again, once they do respond and you qualify them, then it is the hard part, which I think is where a lot of people fail, is the reminding yourself to follow up with them, touching them other channels, doing other things that's outside of the norm.
Yeah.
Because here's
So,
the difference.
sorry.
Go ahead, Nate.
So lead comes in, responds to the automated touch. I engage in actual conversation. I qualify them. I've determined, hey, this is a person we can help. There's a relationship here that we can build and develop. Cool. Now I build something. It goes to our CRM. I've built several sequences, which some will be like, oh, it's just another form of automation. It doesn't do anything for me other than remind me to do things. My
It's a workflow.
Yeah, it is an automated system to remind me of things I should already be doing, because
It creates tasks for
it
you.
creates tasks for me to make sure that I do look back on Facebook and talk to Tony, who engaged with me yesterday, to look on LinkedIn and talk to Lisa, and she connected with me 2 days ago, but I haven't heard from her. So let's check in and see how she's doing, because this was a genuine connection, not just another number in a sequence. So,
So to Nate's point, and I do want to highlight this, if you're going to build an outbound funnel, you're going to need someone to manage it. You're going to need a platform. You're going to have to know your audience, all that. You're going to need a CRM, because a lot of agencies don't even have CRMs to help you stay on track of these deals. And you're going to need that person managing them. For us in Advirtis, we have a partnership coordinator, which is what Nate fulfills. He qualifies all those leads that come through and protects the partner success manager's time to make sure that when they show, his goal is to book discovery calls. When they show up to that discovery call, our team on the partner success side, the sales reps, they already know this person's qualified. They already know about their agency. In this case, the client, they know everything about this client. They know how they're going to pitch them. And it's a 30-minute discovery call with their next steps for what their goal is. And then Nate, his whole job is done. Rinse, repeat. He does the same thing over and over again.
the
And I
important
tell you
part
this.
there is,
Go ahead.
if you don't have somebody in this role, like I live and breathe this every day. This is what I do. So through repetition alone, it's taken us some time. Ozzy and I have worked on this role for the past couple of months, getting it down to what are expectations, what are reasonable standards, how do we manage a slow week versus a fast week? What do we need each person that steps into this role to be able to achieve? And we've worked on that to determine that the main reason that it's so important to have one person is everything that we've learned the past 4 months, Ozzy would have to be doing himself if I wasn't in this role. Or Olivia
Right.
or one of the others would be taking time out of their day on more important tasks at higher levels, further down the funnel, to just be like, well, let's go back to the top of funnel and
It's
manage this.
actually, you bring a really good point. So in sales, guys, there are different stages to the funnel of your deals. And that's, in your CRMs, you call it this deal stage. Nate's point here is really valuable. We had in the beginning of this calendar year, Nate and our sales team, they all had one role, and it was they nurtured their own top of funnel. Then they did the discovery calls. They did all of the work as far as trying to get it to the close and bringing in revenue, each one of them individually. What we had determined was we needed someone, because the top of funnel is totally different from the mid and bottom of funnel. So we realized we need to break that apart. So Nate took over top of funnel, and it allowed the other people on our team to focus on mid funnel and the bottom of funnel. And it increased our sales literally by 3x within I think it was about 3 months. And the reason why was because it allowed the one person to focus on top and then the other people to focus on getting things closed. And that's a total different focus group.
Yeah,
So if you're an
absolutely.
agency and you're trying to figure out building your pipeline, make sure that you're delegating to the proper talent in your team, but also you're able to identify the different energy groups to close that type of business and from a sales perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. If your salesperson if you're measuring KPIs based on how much they sell and they're spending all of their time booking calls instead of actually selling, then that's money out of your pocket and time out of their day that doesn't count towards anything. It
Right.
doesn't set them up for success. It doesn't allow them to be successful, versus when I assume this role, our partnership success managers could focus on managing, not coordinating. That's the
Right.
reason we have those two different roles now.
Yep. My goal was to increase mid funnel sales, and it worked because we were able to divide that attention. And to Nate's point, if you have a salesperson on your team in your agency, you need them to have good momentum. So what happens is if they don't have that momentum, in sales is hard because we all know that when you don't have momentum, usually it's very discouraging. All right. We've all been there. And there are a lot of no's. You handle a lot. I mean, you're in sales. That's what happens. And a lot of salespeople, they have a base with a high commission plan. In our case, in a few different videos, I've talked about hiring commission only reps. This allows you as an agency owner to hire commission only reps because they're not focused on top of funnel. We have somebody bringing them deals and business all the time, and they're working active partners in inactive agencies like in our side. So for you and your agency, you have a pipeline in the past that you've quoted that didn't close. Now that person can manage those, trying to get those to the close again, while your top of funnel person's bringing them leads. You can bring them on as a commission only rep because you have a pipeline being filled up for them. And that's the secret sauce to building a sales team inside of an agency. And I'm just going to say this because I think the title of the show is going to be how to get leads for your agency. But essentially, you just need to build an outbound funnel. You need to have an inbound process. You have a CRM connected to track your deals. And you need to have a sales team that's divided to where one side of it can focus on top of funnel, the other side can focus on mid funnel and the bottom of funnel. And that should set you up for success. Take about 12 months to build that, and you'll thank us later from this conversation.
Yeah.
So, Nate, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It was really impactful, and I'm hopeful that all of you agency owners out there, and really even business owners that are getting started in building your own funnels, I hope this served you well. And if it did, please like and subscribe to our channel here as we talk through these things. It doesn't matter if you're an agency owner or a business owner. Our hope is just to serve you well. And we come back next week. We'll probably be talking about some more sales things, if not end of year. I know I'm about to go through what we call ICE, which is goal setting, and we'll probably end up talking about that next week. Nate's going to come to my home office here next week, probably. We're going to work on his ICE. I do this with every single person within our organization. And what that stands for is essentially impact, confidence, and ease for next year's goals. So we'll probably talk about that next week. But Nate, thank you again. It was great talking with you as always. And thanks for joining. All right.